All right. Think we are live. Sorry about that, everybody, for the 5 minute delay, but it wouldn't be a Maru stream if the timing just wasn't absolutely on point. We're here today with, I would definitely at this point call him a friend of mine, somebody I'm very, very pleased to know, and just somebody that I think the toy community is lucky to have. I'm gonna sit here and just make his head inflate until it can't fit in here anymore. Um, and that is Ricky from the Plunderlings.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we do want to make sure if you guys could in the chat, just if you can, let me know if you can hear us. I want to double check just to make sure. I had a little issue a second ago, so I just want to make sure that everybody can hear us. Um, and that because I don't want you guys to miss out on anything. While I'm doing that, I am going to go ahead and put the link to the Kickstarter and pin it to the top. You got people already coming in here. Look, everybody's saying hello. Clayton's saying hello. Pablo's saying hello. Josh is saying hello. They're like, "What's up? What's going on, guys? How's everybody doing today? I hope everybody's doing good. I hope you're having a good Friday. If you're following that, and I got a confirmation that everybody can hear us. We're set. So
Right.
obviously, we're here to talk about our Lord and Savior. Today we're gonna be we are here to talk about Plunderlings, Plunderlong, and Plunder Strong. Today we're in the final push right now. I'm saying we like I feel like that's the thing. I think
But you're part of it. You're part of it.
we're all part of it, and I hope everybody here is part of it as well. Ricky, how is it? How are you holding up right now?
It's been a little hectic, but good. I'm really excited about all the fact that we have to write these updates last minute or really early because we're hitting the milestones so quickly. Like a lot of those bios, I had like general ideas written down for each of the characters, but to really have to come together quickly to get them out there. So yeah, just the fact that we're um, might even hit 300,000 today. I mean, fingers crossed. But it was unthinkable even like a day ago.
Wow.
So that's really exciting.
It's so incredible. And while Pablo over here asked if you will be at the Legions Con in November.
Yeah, yeah, well,
Oh my gosh, yeah. You know what's funny is I actually got some of my pardon me, some of my first Legion figures. They did those army builders not too long ago, and I had to get it was funny because I looked at them. I was like, all right, which ones do I want to get here? And I wanted some of the knights, but they sold out like that. And I was looking at those goblins, and I was like, how can I not get those at this point to go with some of my green boys from my plunderling. So those were really cool, and they fit the aesthetic really well. I think that was something cool about kind of taking a look at some of these guys right here and all of the stuff that they kind of went with, and then looking at the new longs and strongs, and with for me being a giant NECA collector, especially cartoon turtles, it's ridiculous how well these guys go. They can use the same accessories. So hint, hint, guys, if you're wanting to at least get some accessories from this new the Plunder Long and Plunder Strong, you are looking at some really incredible stuff right now. I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit, but I want to like, what do you think people don't know about these accessory packs? Last night you told us about the it was the torch that is that 8 balls?
yeah. Eight Ball's torch. We didn't do a good job illustrating on the layout, but you can pop off the flame, and it's the same as. Let me get a Plunderling here. It's the same plug as the hands. So I mean, it's just a little fun extra. You can plug in the fire into the hands and have one of them, you know, have got their hand caught on fire or something like that. So yeah, and in general, I mean, it doesn't fit everything, but we tried to keep all the accessories as compatible as possible. Mythic Legion is a good example, one of two that also mix and match really well.
Yeah, and I mean just that little thing, like you said, you're like, oh, and the way you say it is so funny because you're like, oh, you can maybe pop it in their hand, like their hands on fire. That is awesome. Still, little things like that are like, I think to me, what sells. It's like, oh, I didn't know they could do that, or I didn't know this could happen. Like just looking at the was it the boom crates? I
Yeah,
I'm so excited. Like it's Oh, I want more of those cannons. Like I want more, so many cannons. After looking at that, I was like, oh my gosh, like these, like you said, you could put the coconut on their head. And that, I think that option right there just alone really speaks to how much fun these guys are.
Yeah, whenever there's a detail that we can add to it, especially when we're playing around with Seba, when he's sculpting, a lot of times he'll have ideas, and so with the coconut, for example, we thought of putting a magnet inside the coconut, inside the cannons and the coconuts as well. So that helps with the muscle crate, so they can pick up the cannons with that hand that has a magnet in it. But also, since the coconut is about the same shape as a Plunderling's head and it has a magnet in it, you can also put hats on it. So again, like I don't really know, why, but it just seemed like something fun. And like if it sets people's imagination off to put them with a coconut head and a hat on top of it, then great, So I'm more excited. I can't tell you what it is you can do with that, but I'm hoping that people will let me know later.
Oh man, I can tell you like right away. You imagine having like a little like a Plunderling either on the beach or in a little raft, and he's got the coconut with a hat on it, like Wilson in Castaway. Like he had the volleyball. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
I can already see people starting to like 3D print other things to go with their Plunderlings at that point, because there's something about this. I saw you shared a photo, and I'm sorry I don't know the guy's name, but he did an amazing setup with sand all over his table and like the Plunderling in the sand and stuff like that. And there's something about that.
That's probably Jason B. Michael.
Okay.
He just uploaded it today. He's amazing. Yeah.
Phenomenal looking photo and stuff like that. So it's like those little accessories and whatnot, and that's kind of what it seems like every time you did the accessory packs, and I'm like just watching them, and oh my gosh, the leather pack, dude.
Well, actually, one thing I was thinking that again, there's kind of an interesting mix-up to do with if you have the leather crate, some hatchlings, and the boom crate, you can almost make your own toys out of those three crates alone without even needing a Plunderling, right? I mean, I don't know if I'm undercutting some sales right now, like people are gonna, but you can kind of take the hatchling body, put on the gloves, and put a coconut on top, and there you go. You got like a little, coconut creature.
Dude, that is, it's funny. It makes me think of those. I know those figures that you like. Are they the Imagine Next? Is that correct? Or what are those cool little pirate figures you had?
Right. Yeah, I think these are. Oh my god, I think Great Adventures.
Great Adventures. Yeah.
There's one that maybe is a little too close to the next unlockable, but like a little lobster claw. I don't know. Just really fun little figures that have a lot of imagination in them.
Well, and I think that's where you lead over there too. That just like talking about like you can have these, you've got these little static hatchlings, and I won't lie, it was one of my biggest regrets that I think I don't even know if I got any of those in the first. Keep in mind, when I first backed the Kickstarter, I believe I bought 3. And the day I got them was like, as I couldn't review these things fast enough. As soon as I opened Cheddar up, and I think I bent the wrist joint, and I was like, oh my god, it's amazing. Like I just, you can feel, when you grade a good figure, you can feel it. And I know that had to feel feel really good for you, just to be like, oh, thank God, there's this feels good. But getting that in, and then I get these. So I ended up buying like as many hatchlings as I possibly could whenever you re-release. Which thank you, by the way, for that. And they're so much fun. It's like it's the most clever way, because usually this is what happens. I get a new figure, and I'll separate them out, put them in like different sized baggies, and then you set them off to the side. But now, being able to pop the hands and the heads on these guys, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have to just pack the pieces away. I've got this cool little figure, and I don't know what I kind of want to know what stemmed that idea, but I don't want to like waste any of the
No, I mean it's definitely a problem that I have, and I just have so many bits and pieces all over the place of different toys that I don't remember what they're from.
Yeah,
I'm just not very organized, so at least you put them in bags. But I just have drawers, and it's a mess. It doesn't look good. And I think I had found a loose head from Perfect Cell. I think it was a Fig Arts DVD toy, and I don't know why. I think that the initial idea was that it'd be really cool to have like the Cell Juniors, the chibi cells.
Yeah,
made like a little body. You could put on those big heads on it, and and then after working out with Seba, we kind of came up with this solution. We're also playing around with ideas. Maybe we're doing like keychains and magnets, like for the heads. Yeah. But it made more sense to make them into figures.
Yeah, I mean, and they work so well. They're really fun, and I mean, you don't need all that articulation. They stand perfectly fine, and it's just this cool little like an extra. I could definitely see them even going further wherever you want to go in the future because the hatchlings feel like they just have it's kind of crazy because it makes me think of like spin-offs from that, you know. So you've got your Plunderlings, and it's like the hatchling deals, like Muppet Babies almost. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's
Sure,
so much
yeah.
there's so much fun. And it was funny, Christine and I were talking about, and I won't get off too much subject, but it's like looking at them whenever you branch out into other medias and stuff like that. But just looking at your animation, that intro that you guys did, and there's something so cool about them not speaking any language, and I think that's where like some of that charm comes in, where so much is expressed. I think of what is it, the squirrel from Ice Age, how there's
All right.
no
Yeah, yeah.
you know, or my I think the best thing I could say is when I look at these figures, my first thought is Wile E. Coyote. Like that's everything to me is them. Like the especially when I look at Eight Ball and I'm like, man, I see I see the Tinker Dynamite from the
Yeah,
original.
yeah.
I was like, see that, and I'm like, all I could think of was like, how cool would it be if we put like, you know, you put like a little makeshift wick on his head, almost like he's gonna light. You know, it just seems
Uh,
like a
that
there's
would have been a good idea. Yeah. I should have talked to you first. Yeah.
but I
I like
mean,
that.
geez, it's not like you didn't add in. The amount of stuff that comes with these guys is crazy this time around. Um, I think it looks to me like he seems to be a fan favorite is the Eight Ball, and then I'm seeing a lot of people digging on Swash as well, especially after you drop that leather crate.
I'm really curious to know which are going to be the favorites because I don't know since we haven't sent out surveys yet for people
Mhm.
to pick. So right now it's totally up in the air, and sometimes it kind of goes plays against us a little bit, not really knowing because there's some figures that are so unpopular that it's almost like because I have to put in a minimum order of like 500 of any of them
Mhm.
to be able to make them. And so, but yeah, I'm confident that all of them will eventually find a home. But yeah, I'm always curious to know which are the most popular ones, and I'm always really curious about which are the least popular ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
Who is your who's your favorite
oh man,
Plunderling?
I
Like,
can't choose publicly.
there it is.
Plunder. No, but I think the one I was really excited about unlocking on the Kickstarter was Kayo. I was really happy that we got around to or Kayo. Yeah, that we got around to unlocking him because yeah, I've been playing around with that idea of kind of like a Don Quixote type character in
Yeah,
lobster armor, like forever. So this is kind of an excuse to kind of go down
dude.
that design. So I'm really glad we unlocked them.
You were talking about all the different descriptions. You had all these plans. You're like, oh, because I know you go overboard. You go too far with your ideas, and I think that's what honestly drives a lot of this project. Because I can relate to you so much. Where you're excited, you're passionate about this thing, and you have all of these amazing ideas, and just seeing them is just to me it's overwhelming because I'm like, man, this guy just put so much freaking work into so many things. And like we were talking earlier before this, I was like, you know, sometimes you see some color swaps and whatnot, but these there's something so ridiculously fun about these the bright colors and whatnot. I remember the one that I wasn't, it was crazy. Was it is it my little berserker, my green guy, as I call him, was he was one of the ones at the beginning, and Christine's like, "Oh, that one to me is not. She's not interested in that one at all." And I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you've seen a green one before." And then I got him. I went ahead and bought him because I was like, "All right, I need them. I need all of these." I get him in my hands, and there's something about it. I was like, "This has become one of my favorite ones." And I don't know if it was just like this beautiful, like this green. You know, you have these awesome paint jobs, these matte kind of colors, and I think that's one of the things that just is amazing to it. But I was like, why didn't I? What didn't draw me to this figure? And then when I got it in my hands, I was like, this is one of the most fun. And it's just a color swap, so I think I don't know if it plays with like what colors like really resonate in your head and whatnot. Because I saw Zombone had to be one of the top posted like favorites as far as I saw. Like people loved it, man. I've noticed that Eight Ball is a big deal. So I'm like, is it the ghost white? You know, like, is there something about that that's driving people to them, or
yeah.
what?
I'm not
Or
sure. Well, there's I work with other creative people too. Like for example,
Mhm.
color is one of the things I'm not very strong on, but I leaned hard on some other people on the team, like Anna, who she's really good at colors, and really got to make sure that none of them were too bright or bothersome. That they all kind of fit into a certain palette.
Sure.
About why people were drawn to certain colors, I'm not sure. Like from the first Plunderlings wave, the favorite was definitely Goyle, and I think there was just something about that purple and that gray that people really liked. And Zambone initially was like, I didn't really want to make a blank character, so but I know there's like kind of a demand for it, so it kind of started off there. I was like, well, what if we make kind of a blank personality, it's a character, but if you want to use it as a blank, you can paint it. But I think he ended up coming into his own a lot too.
Yeah.
So
he did.
So if people want to paint them, they can, but that's always the biggest challenge to figure out how to, or the funnest part more than a challenge, is to give them all individual personalities and make sure that they all feel like their own character.
Right.
Even though there's a lot of similarities between them, but just to give them enough accessories, backstory, colors that makes them feel like they're their own thing.
Yeah, and that's definitely been achieved. And I think the coolest thing is whenever you'll kind of go through all the Plunderling posts, I scour Instagram and whatnot, and you see like obviously one of the draws to the Plunderverse here is the magnets, the magnetic swaps that you can do are just. There's something ridiculously fun about that. Everybody does like head swaps and whatnot, and to see the accessory swaps popping around and you could kind of play with those colors and see what works on another one. I love that I can put the cursed crown on my drench, because it's just I've got him with the trident right next to an Aquaman figure. But they're both kings. They got these crowns, and I'm like, that's phenomenal to me. One of the things.
Well, another thing that those kind of discovered too was the stackable element of them. That honestly, we hadn't foreseen that before making it. But when Zambone came out with that kind of the thin helmet, the fact that you could stack helmets on top of each other is also like a really fun element to it. That was also kind of discovered. Like again, there's a lot of cross compatibility with these accessory crates. And the Plunderlong and the Plunderstrong and the Plunderling, they're not 100% compatible in everything, but there's enough where I'm more than anything excited to see what people come up with.
Yeah, I cannot wait. I can't wait to get them in my head, because I'm like, I want to do what I'm not supposed to do with these. You know what I mean? I was like, I'd be like, hey, did you know they can do this? This is incredible.
Wait, let me see if I can try something out real quick.
Yeah.
But it's not a perfect fit, but you can kind of
yes, dude.
So you can get them, pop them into each other.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
And also, vice versa too. But it's not going to look as good, but you can also try it too, right? So I think that's awesome. It doesn't have any ears to Plunderstrong, but the real prototype, Jay Hernandez has it right now. This is like a half-built prototype that I have.
Dude, I think that looks really fun to me. Like, imagine like the big like a Plunderstrong head on a Plunderling, just popping it on. Even if I don't know, do those pegs peg in? I know it doesn't look right, but does it pop?
The idea is that all the pegs are the same on all of them. There's still some tweaking we have to do to get it better, but that's the reason why the hatchings are compatible on all of them.
Oh man,
the Plunderstrong's neck is a lot thicker.
Yeah,
but it works.
Dude,
it works. It doesn't look great, but more than anything, I'm excited to see, how people, have fun with that.
Dude, that is screaming a Halloween post where like they're like wearing the masks or something like that with the angry masks of like these bigger plunder. Oh, like there's so much. It's just awesome to me. One of the ones, the lobster claw looking Plunderstrong. Naufrag is so freaking cool, especially after I read the bio. I was like, oh my gosh, it's the freaking little parasite, and that is so cool, man. I was like, that's cool. That almost like you almost made like it's almost like a non Plunderstrong, Plunderlong, Plunderling. It's something else that's taken over, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool." Yeah, that's one of the coolest things.
Naufrag's the name of the parasite, not of the host bug.
How cool! That is amazing, dude. I thought that was like I said, I was reading up on the bios last night, And again, and I looked at that one. I was like, oh, that is nuts. And I remember you had
Mhm.
mentioned about the like the claw stuff, and you're like, I don't know why. That's so funny that you are you have these creative ideas, and you're like, I don't know why people would do this, but they can do that. The fact that you give us the option because you know people are going to do that and have those little like little claw hands or something silly like that, and it's I feel
Yeah.
like your whole point and purpose is to have fun in a positive space. And I mean, once again, this just elevates that to just two other levels. Now with longs and strongs, I can't believe that you were able to give us two more types, and that is just bonkers to me. How did you? I do want to know though. How did you decide on like the long and strong shapes? Like, what was that thought process from this? Was that like from the very beginning? Did you have that idea?
Yeah, I was looking back on my chats a little while ago when we actually were working on the Plunderlong Plunderstrong during the original Kickstarter campaign. It didn't I didn't realize how long we had been working on it, but yeah, we're playing around with a lot of different designs, a lot of different ideas. But I think originally, again, because we come from a more of an animation background, we think a lot about shapes and silhouettes. So for me, the head of Plunderling is a circle, and then we're trying to come up with, Plunderlong is more of like an upside down triangle,
Yeah.
and the Plunder Strong is more of a square.
Mm-hmm.
To have them have kind of recognizable silhouettes to them that are also fun shapes. So I think it kind of started there, and then they slowly end up discovering themselves, and also once went through a concept artist and then through Seba, it kind of started taking on a life of its own.
Man, speaking of life of its own, that freaking typhoon is so awesome. Like
Yeah.
it's so different. Like I didn't expect. I remember I was going through. I was like, I saw looking at the silhouettes and whatnot. I was like, okay, that obviously we know from this shape. We know what we're getting here, and had no idea. Like when I saw the tentacles and whatnot, I'm like, that is the coolest freaking thing I've seen. And then it look. Am I correct that those are all articulated in like three different spots? Is that right? Or
Yeah, they have three different swivels, so they're not super articulated, but they rotate and they manage. They can go lie flat on the ground. They can
yeah,
stand up. They can tilt, and so one of them can hold weapons, so you can kind of sword fight with it.
dude.
So that's kind of the idea. And the fawns and the drench are kind of become like a fun variant that we can play a little bit. Get a little more creative, like with the Plunderlong fawn and the four legs, to really figure out like what can we do different with still the kind of this using most of the same base body,
Yeah.
but use the fawn and the drench as an excuse to take it a little further.
Oh man, those. It's it's sad whenever I sit there and I go through everything and it's like, okay, just be real. Maybe everything won't get unlocked. Okay, just like I'm sitting there, try to breathe a little bit and look at that, and I look at the accessories. It's not. Sometimes it's not even about the figure you're missing out. It's the freaking drums and the harp and all of the really cool freaking tools with the Tinker. I've dubbed these guys the Tinker Twins. I know that's not the thing, but that's what I. It's easy to say, and I love Tinker. I'm not gonna harp on it, but if you guys could just really make that push, because I really don't want history to repeat itself again.
I
But
was thinking of that. Yeah, the Tinkers are like cursed. If we unlock both of the cursed variants, then we kind
uh,
of fell in the same place as last time, where we unlocked the cursed and just stopped just short of
uh,
the Tinkers and the Fawns.
I mean that one. That's the one it was crushing. But whenever it comes down to it, we
Mm-hmm.
did get this amazing new toy line, and so there's. I mean, I guess you win some, you lose some, but that felt like a whole win when it came down to it. And this whole thing looks like this is definitely a success again. I mean,
No, no,
has it gone as
I
well as you wanted it to? Or?
definitely can't complain. Yeah, no, way better than I expected. We're really happy, and again, now it's kind of official. I feel like that there's a toy line now. I was a little bit insecure that I wasn't sure if the Plunderlings was just kind of a one hit
Wonder.
wonder, but like now I feel like there's now we can really build out the universe, and we're kind of starting with these three characters, and we can start expanding from there. A little more sure-footed, but yeah. And also, we really try to compress all the milestones as much as possible. Sometimes even like too much, because every milestone is a new new tooling plates, as everyone
Mm-hmm.
knows, is the most expensive part. Uh, but I want to unlock them more than anybody else. Like I want to see those come to life as well, and so we really try to make them happen. But yeah, we also need to kind of balance that with the reality and economics
Yeah.
of what it costs to make every new figure.
Now you
And
don't
it's
have.
not just the tooling cost; it's also the minimum order of every figure. So every single time you add a new figure, all of a sudden, even though you sold a certain amount, it gets more distributed throughout different figures, and the minimum quantity you have to order of each of them remains the same.
See, and that's that right there is like something that I don't think people understand a lot of times. It's like super easy, I think, to get mad at the player of this whole thing, but when you really think of the game in total, it's like, there is, I mean, you are going to have to make these certain orders. You're going to have to do this certain thing. It's like, I know you wanted that one figure, but it's like that one figure isn't just one figure at that point. That's a lot that goes into that. Can I, and you don't have to answer this, we can move right forward, but why were Tinkers that, why the order that you chose? Did it make more sense financially, or?
A little bit. The Fawns had a little bit more tooling involved
Yeah.
with the Fawn Plunderstrong's fur chest, the four-legged body.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually even made more sense for the Plunderstrong Drench to be. It was an original layout that we had where the Plunderstrong Drench was like the final milestone.
Mm-hmm.
But then thinking about it, since the Drench are kind of like our figures that kind of show up every once in a while for events and exclusives, that it kind of made more sense to invest in that Plunderstrong Drench body and be
Yeah.
able to do more stuff with it in the future. So that's why it got pushed down the list. But yeah, it's mostly that. It's
Yeah.
mostly trying to figure out kind of how to incrementally
Yeah.
add more tooling.
Yeah, and I assume so. I just I kind of wanted, I honestly just wanted to like coax that real answer out of you so people know it's like, hey, look, it wasn't like when it wasn't on purpose. Wasn't a mean thing. It was just like, guys, this is kind of how it works. Sometimes we've seen this with tons of Kickstarters where certain things don't get unlocked and there's a reason. But when you really go down that list that we're looking at right now of this current Kickstarter, and it is a phenomenal. It's amazing. Like, we've got the amount of differences and the variations, the freaking packs that are coming through. I am in love with the muscle crate. Those
Oh, thank you.
dude. I the fact that you gave him the fancy hands is what Christine and I were calling them. I was like,
Yeah,
so they can
the
hold,
pinky.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they can hold like tiny accessories, and then so the open hands do those stick to a Plunderling's head?
Yeah, there's
Oh,
kind of this open gripping hand that has a magnet in it, and it will work for the coconut and the cannon balls, but also work with the big Plunderling heads. So
oh
here I
yeah.
have a Maru here.
There
Right?
he is, y'all.
So he can grab onto him, kind of like
Oh,
basketball palm it.
dude,
Um,
I love that.
Maybe toss a few Plunderlings. Again, like
Yeah,
I really don't have a specific idea of what people are going to do with it, but just I think giving the option is
that
will be fun to see what people do with it.
you have such an interesting and unique mind and outlook whenever you're designing these things, because for you to not have those ideas in play, and I think it's funny to me because I think you seem you have these ideas, and I think in the back of your mind, I think it'll work, but on the exterior you're like, oh, I don't know why people would want to do this, and I'm like, I think it's one of those things. I know you want the people to show you, but when it comes down to it,
No,
it's like
I have a certain amount of idea, but I don't. Again, I was very surprised with what people came up with the Plunderlings and the Hatchlings
oh
and the
man,
scenarios people came up with.
dude.
Yeah. Again, we're just kind of putting options out there, but
How does it
it's
how does it make you feel to like have a basic idea and for people to completely expand and surprise you? The fact that you've created this world on just, well, I don't know what people are going to do, and then they completely just like, how does that make you feel to see what
I don't
people have
know.
done with
It's
your creation?
probably up there with. I mean, again, I don't want to take full credit for it.
Sure.
Definitely. a lot of people helped out, including
Right.
Seba. But it's up there with one of the best feelings, I think,
Good.
to see people really enjoying and interacting with it. Again, because we before this were more of an animation and VFX studio. We really worked behind the scenes on things, so there's very little direct interaction. Like, first of all, we're very creatively limited to what the client wants. But if we really did a good job with the visual effects, for example, no one would even notice we did anything at all.
Right.
You know, so and so there's no like direct interaction with the audiences or anything like that. So this has been, yeah, like really an amazing opportunity, and even like life affirming in the sense of like really like putting stuff creatively out there and getting a sense for the reaction right away is something that's really really special, and I hope other people who are creatively inclined to think a little bit more about like putting their stuff out there as well,
Yeah.
because it wasn't until I saw Spiro
Spiro.
from Animal Warriors of Kingdom do his Kickstarter that I
Yeah.
thought it was possible, because I've always loved toys. I have a huge collection of toys, and always thought that like the way to get to make toys was to kind of be a service provider in animation. Eventually, maybe we'd be able to make our own animated pilot if we saved up enough money, and then go out there
Yeah.
and pitch it, and then maybe eventually it would be picked up, and then we can get involved in the toys of it. It was such a long shot that like it's just impossible.
Yeah.
But seeing how Spiro could just jump straight into the toy part, and also seeing Mythic Legions and different indie brands, kind of made it seem like maybe it was just possible to jump to the toy part and kind of like
Well,
go backwards.
I mean, I think there's this. It's a smaller line. I think it's called Masters of the Universe. Did the same thing, if I'm not mistaken. They did toys and then went into the cartoon stuff. It was just like people wanted the figures, and then it's kind of up to y'all to do it. Back then, they had to do that. Since you're this more independent studio, you guys were able to do this, and I love the fact that you tinker with the animations, that we do get these cool little I'm not even gonna say little. The animation that you put out for this Kickstarter with the fight on the ship and everything is so impressive and so cool, and I just don't think I've seen that in a Kickstarter before. And it was just, you could feel that there's heart and that there's effort and love in that thing. I showed it to Christine, and she was like, that she's like, those are animated Plunderlings. Like, how cool is that? I told you I wouldn't go off on this, so I won't. But we definitely hope in the future, with the success of all these lines, that we do get to see other mediums. Because right now, I think yeah, you're the one who said that when it comes down to it, you're wanting to make a line for not only current collectors who, and like, I believe you were like, it was like the 80s and 90s guys who are, oh, these are our toys and stuff like this, but this could be for literally everyone, new generations, older generations, current generations. This line, it gives itself to them. Like you said, we're trying to make a toy line here, and not just, to maybe get kids, still even kids, like playing with toys, and not just, hey, go have a video game. Like you said, those generations that are different. And we've seen a drop in that, I think, in because I remember when we were kids, man, this little guy would have been outside in the sandbox or somewhere. It would have been everywhere. In fact, adults like me do take these everywhere. I took one to Colorado with me, for God's sakes. I had to take photos with it. I was like, this is so much fun. And there was nothing in the world, around the world, that mattered to me more than having fun with this thing on a piece of wood out in the forest, and to take a photo of this thing. And I was like, wow, I haven't felt that feeling in a long time. And I'm hoping, and I've seen this, that some people are letting their kids play with these. And these are, obviously there are some small parts, so, as you be smart enough, but as age appropriate. But these are totally fine. Like, a kid could totally play with these, and I'm not even worried about it breaking. I have fixed one of these figures, and it was a Zombone, and you came out, you're like, some of the hips are stuck at the very, very, very beginning one. I got the new Zombone, he's totally fine, and That is amazing. That is so incredible with the amount of figures that I fix. So I I would say they were probably tested for kids. I can't. I'm not a spokesperson for the Plunderlings, but I would
No,
say they're safe.
they did go through testing, but we have them marked for 8 and up
There you go.
because of the magnets. So yeah, definitely not going to kids that are too young.
Sure.
And some of the weapons are a little bit,
Right.
maybe a little bit sharp. But
Mhm.
yeah, we're trying to make it not just exclusively
Mhm.
for 18 plus, which a lot of indie or adult toy collector lines are.
Mhm.
But yeah, but again, it's not even like when I was mentioning, I guess in yesterday's interview a little bit about why why I think it's personally important to support kind of like indie IPs, isn't just to kind of get kids involved too, but I even think it's good for, again, good for the community too,
Mhm.
so they can feel inspired to put stuff out as well. Because even
Yes.
if you're like a comic book artist, like when all we see and like is kind of like almost feel like it's just kind of reimaginings of things that have already been released. It can seem daunting and
Yeah.
literally impossible to put your own ideas out there because it
Yeah.
feels like what we're kind of being told is that there's no point in trying because so I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of a longer conversation, but
No, I
that's what I'm kind
understand.
of like maybe like I think maybe the real money is in licensing and stuff like that. Like sure, maybe we can license and do a super articulated Mr. Magoo figure or something like that. Like
That's so
no, but
cool.
I don't think I'm interested in that right now.
Yeah.
Like I think what's interesting is or right now. I'm not saying it'll never happen, but more than kind of trying to make and bring back older stuff. I think as a society, we're still creative and we can still make new stuff, and then we don't have to only be able to celebrate the old stuff. I don't think the best times are behind us. And I think sometimes when it's all just kind of retro brands, sometimes I wonder for a little bit, kind of like the college athlete, a little bit like looking back on his
Yeah. Glory days.
when he used to be a quarterback or something like that, just
Yeah.
talking about how great it was in the 80s and 90s when all the brands were awesome. And even though the brands were awesome back then, I wonder subliminally we're telling ourselves and even telling other people and even younger people that those were the times to do it, and that there's no point in trying to do it anymore.
Man, I think that's a great point, and I definitely follow you on this because Spiro, I had for their first one for their 3 3/4 inch figures, I had supported a couple of those because I met Jason in Houston, and the dude was so freaking nice, so cool, and I was like, oh, you have a book, and he's like, yeah, I was like, well, I'll buy that here, and then he had he had a drawing of the Ninja Turtles too, so I was like, and I'll have that signed. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in his style, that style of the Animal Warriors. But anyways, I fully backed the 6 inch line because I kept asking him for so long. I was like, Jason, is that gonna happen? And he's like, maybe. Kept giving me the little things, and then bam, there it
Mm-hmm.
was. But also with comics, one of my favorite artists is a guy named Ben Bishop that I met many years ago, who is now working on projects like Ninja Turtles. That's one of his favorite properties ever, and he did a successful Kickstarter for a choose your own adventure graphic novel called The Aggregate, and it was successful, and it was so cool. I was like, oh my, and it was original. The idea was original, had a little nostalgia because of that choose your own adventure thing, but the whole story was original. And then he had these other original stories, so it made me look into those, and now he's able to work on Ninja Turtles and stuff like that, or private, like The Last Ronin. He's doing all of that with Eastman, and so it led him into that. But he's also focusing on his aggregate book #2. So it is cool for people to back that stuff up, and it gives these some guys that confidence that they needed, and not only that, but the success that they needed to get to another level and still keep putting out those fresh ideas that are important. Because you're right, there's nothing worse than like, oh, the 90s Spider-Man's great, but this Spider-Man's awful, or there's always going to be that. But now you get this new line of new, fresh, new stuff.
Yeah. And it's definitely not a binary choice, not either or.
Sure.
I think we can do both. I just think that if we kind of get caught up in just one, we might be doing a disservice.
Absolutely.
I mean, but yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
that's just It's just like an opinion, man.
No, and that's totally fine. That's why we're here. You know, we're here to see that stuff, and I mean, just looking in the chat here, I mean, I'm seeing like Hankin was talking about, like he's like the animation is beautiful that you guys did. He says his three boys have Plunderling stickers on their drink bottles.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, man. Pablo did ask, is will you have Plunderlings for sale at Legion's Con? He's looking forward to meeting you.
Yeah, well, I have to double check if we actually have the booth. I'm definitely planning on attending, and if we do have a booth, yeah, we'll be bringing over some figures.
That's awesome, man. I think that's one of the coolest things right now, and I know that, you know, we see Big Bad still supporting the Plunderling line, and that's great. I think that they're one of those toy companies that we can trust and whatnot. So it's cool to see. Not only just we saw the first Kickstarter successful, you delivered. You know what you said, and there's some companies out there that I think some people get nervous. There's a lot of companies out there that are like, hey. And they'll even have branded products for you, and maybe they don't deliver. You know, there's a lot of distrust out there. So I think, and I hope, and I mean, this is my opinion, and I feel like a lot of people share this, is that Plunderlings brought something to the toy world that we really needed, and it fits so well in that that Mythic Legions kind of era where these, you know, IPs, like, we can trust them. And I think that's something that's really cool. Do you think, would you want at some point, like, to be able to, is that like the kind of area you're wanting to branch into? Like how every now and then Mythic Legions, you know, you can go to their site and they're constantly got pre-orders going up, or is it like a Kickstarter thing from now on, or how does that I don't know if that, I don't even know if there's any plans, or if that's something you
Yeah,
can
no,
share.
I don't think. I think we're also kind of figuring it out a little
Sure.
bit.
That's awesome.
You know, Kickstarter has been an interesting platform because of the tooling cost involved. That if you don't raise a minimum amount, it's not worth doing at all. You know, so I kind of like the all or nothing aspect to Kickstarter.
Sure.
That if you don't hit your minimum funding, then it's better not to go into. That said, though, with the Plunderlong and the Plunderstrong, I did get a bit ahead of myself, and we did tool the bodies for both figures, so we have that. We have a leg up there.
Cool.
And the Kickstarter was more to figure out how many variants to make, but we did kind of front the cost for the bodies, because a lot of it was because the engineering, especially in the Plunderstrong, was so different that I wasn't 100% sure it was going to work until we tooled it.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel comfortable putting a Kickstarter out there, asking for money for something I wasn't sure was going to work yet. So
awesome.
It was important to have it tooled and figured out and see it in person. And as you can see from like Toy Bro and Robo and Jay Hernandez kind of put it through the paces, and it works really well. We're really happy with how it turned out. So yeah, that's but yeah, in terms of how we're going to roll things out in the future, I think the more we can get out there, the better. But also we have to be conscious of people, the cover, because I think the Plunderstrong and the Plunderlong, we hit so many variants that I could see it being a little bit difficult, maybe for some people who are completionists. Yeah. So yeah, I think we need to kind of figure out how to do it in the future. Maybe have a little bit smaller waves.
Yeah.
But we also want to hit new Plunder folk as well, which we always kind of have that. We're always like right now we have 3 other Plunder folk that we're working on during this campaign. The same way during the Plunderling campaign, we were working on the Plunderlong, Plunderstrong. Hopefully, our development cycle gets a little shorter. COVID also happened, which also stretched things out. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe in the future, maybe we'll see a Plunder Tinker line, and that's and yes, just do it.
Yeah. No, I definitely hear it. And
cool.
We definitely need to figure out. Just a lot of times we need to decide whether or not, like, do we go back and remake older stuff, or do we move forward? Like right now, I definitely wanted to focus on the Plunderlong and the Plunderstrong and make sure there was enough interest on them to get them off the ground.
Yeah.
Rather than kind of mixing that in with older designs that we have that I definitely want to come back around to, but I feel like we can do one thing at a time right now. We're just not at that scale where we can.
Oh man,
simultaneously be doing four
I
things at a time.
I think the coolest thing you did this time around, and as much as I love the Plunder Long and the Plunder Strong, I think the thing that excited me honestly the most was your accessory kits. Those I know you did little ones, but you expanded upon those, and to see how they fit with everything, I'm like, these guys could do. You guys could do. There's so much there that I feel like you've barely poked a hole into this like dam of just ideas that could just come pouring out, and the world that you're building is it's almost like it's at such a good pace right now because I think there's so much anticipation to see what are you guys gonna do next. It's like I didn't expect a plunderling with tentacles or crab hands
Mhm.
or this stuff or beards. It's like what is happening? Like we had all these like cool little guys. Your drench last time were like, oh, those are tweaked a little bit. And then what's funny is whenever you get all of them in your hand, if you weren't paying attention, it's like, oh, some of these guys have like little nicks in their ears and some are just nice and clean. And it was like cool to see those little variants. But to see these accessories and then these like the bodies like that drench with the crazy tentacles and stuff is just it's just really exciting to see like what happens next. Are we gonna see plunder wings? You know what I mean? Like it's just like I know you can go because it's your world and you can do whatever you want with these things. And I don't know. There's something extremely intriguing and exciting and anticipatory of that to see what can you do next that you're just adding to these worlds like the little helmets that go on stuff and things like that the oh gosh those boom crates just really got me excited. I love the fact they're like
It's definitely a blessing that we're not beholden to a licensor or something like that. That we
right
need to, there's a lot of design decisions that are kind of instructed by articulation or something like that.
sure
So it's definitely nice that we can, just try to make the best decision, the most fun decision possible
yeah
for that, and not have to be worried about does it match up with something else. The only thing about the accessories, the one that we've been having the hardest time keeping in stock, and I just foresee it always being a little bit of a problem is the muscle crates and the hatchlings because we have so many SKUs because every single color it's its own
oh
product.
gosh
It just
Oof.
kind of becomes logistically complicated. I think we did a pretty good job keeping the wood and the steel crate from the Plunderlings in stock
Mm-hmm.
for a while. But the hatchlings and the muscle crate, that's part of the reason why I wanted to do it in the Kickstarter so that people can select the ones that we want
yeah
and kind of make it order a bit and try to get a better feel for how many are really wanted
yeah
because it's easy to make too many hatchlings of a color that isn't popular. And
right
but as we get more Plunderlongs and Plunderstrongs are the same colors too,
mm-hmm.
I think it'll help even out the demand a little bit as well. But
absolutely
it's just a lot of different items.
oh I yeah and it's it's funny is I can relate in a sense like where I work I'm a video editor and we have a lot of offices in a lot of different towns and we would do promotional videos showing how we service these towns and so we had this idea at one point we have a bunch of marketers there quality measures people and so we're like hey it'd be fun to do like a funny video for each marketer and then we had town footage for that specific town. This is back when DVDs were the thing. So I was having to do for every town like 5 to 6 different DVDs, which like each person on that town. So it's like it got to the point where like you're all right, where are we going? All right, we're going to this town called Graham. Okay, well who's going there? Well James is going there. Okay, so we need the James Graham DVD. Okay, great. And then it's like it mixes all those things around like and I was just like it's so much you just get stacks and stacks and stacks of stuff and you're like oh my gosh there's
Mhm.
let's keep up with this stuff and
Yeah.
I can imagine like the just making sure that everything's gosh going out are you guys
Well,
still
I think we're getting better at it too because
yeah
before we're doing the fulfillment literally out of our garage,
yeah
just getting a U-Haul and picking things ourselves. But not now. I think, it's good to focus on your strengths, and I think we'll get better at the fulfillment part by finding companies we can delegate it with.
absolutely
Um,
yeah man
but yeah, that's just something that's been a little bit challenging. It's not the fun part of developing and designing the toy. That's kind of
yeah
the
you know
warehouse part and keeping things in stock and shipping it all out.
And there was something I was noticing, like there's like the Plunderling stickers and stuff like that. You know, you have. Is there any idea or any like talk on the table of doing Plunderlings like shirts, merch with those designs?
Um, yeah, maybe right now we're working on some pins. There's a Maru pin of the hatchling. So
Woo!
we're definitely working on little things, but yeah, nothing too specific in terms of apparel
Yeah.
or merch. But
Ugh.
yeah, I think I still feel like we need to make sure that we get the toy part right, and then we can think about other things.
Gotcha.
But it's definitely yeah.
Watch,
Right,
gotcha.
right now
One thing at
we're
a
that.
time. I get it. It's like it's easy as a fan to be like, are you gonna do this? Are you gonna do this? And you're like, yeah, we would like to do all of that. That would be great. But yeah, sometimes I gotta ask because it's one of those things where I'm like, man, I would love to. People want to support the brand. When it comes down to it, like that's people are gonna want to do that, and it would be a no brainer for that. So I guarantee you, if you put out like some kind of survey for that later on down the road, you're like, hey, y'all want shirts? The answer is yeah. Even just like Plunderlings, and it'd be like
Yeah.
instant. But I think it's so yeah. See, people are already saying yes. I didn't sign
All
up for that. Oh,
right, well, that's actually good to know because
oh
yeah,
yeah,
my big thing is I always want to make sure that we're offering something of value and not just
dude.
So if people are interested in it,
Oh man, how cool! I mean, there's like I said, there's no question about it. If there's yeah, that's yeah. Every single one, you could see each one of these could be their own T-shirt. Just the head and the color of the shirt, and you're set. I saw somebody said any plans for a feral strong.
yeah, we kind of skipped that one. I know we there's no plans on the table right now to release that in the near future, but there's also like an OCD part of me that wants to make sure that all the lines are
Yeah,
are complete. It also bothers me that there's a gap in
yeah. I don't know, man.
for the Plunder Strong, but Plunder Strong was challenging just because all his jackets, everything is basically a tooling plate because it's so large.
Wow. For
But yeah,
those,
that's the reason why we're a little bit more careful about putting too many strongs out there. So we had to cut back somewhere.
so for those
And also, we
who,
got the drench. So
yeah,
that was kind
yeah,
of a trade off.
absolutely. Well, yeah, and so for those who don't know, how tall is the Plunder Strong?
I'm not sure what we'd compare it to. Well, it's 6.5 inches tall without a
Okay.
hat.
Yeah.
But let me compare
Well, I
it
mean,
to something.
there's your.
It's more than anything wide, more than it's tall. Well, I wouldn't even call it a custom. Here's just kind of like a Marvel legend, I guess. So kind of like, well, he's got a hat on.
I love it. But still, yeah,
Let me see.
that gives you a perfect idea, right there. It's like so 6.5 inches. That is a big plunder
But more than
guy.
anything, it's wide. It's like it feels
Yeah.
it feels good in the head. So that's where most of its size comes into play. It's not terribly tall, but it feels like a big figure.
Yeah, and in that world, I mean, gosh, what is so your plunderling's a good, was it 4 inches maybe? One, two, three.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
four. That's a that's substantially large, and for him to be that wide, that is going to be such a, like you
And
said,
here's so the Plunder Long is also just about half
those
an inch taller
those
as
are
well.
that's what fans want, is that size right there, and the fact that you've created your own world and that you're keeping things in scale in your world means the Plunderlings will always be in scale, and that just makes me so happy. And I think that's going to make a lot of fans happy. Be like, oh my gosh, there's such a nice comfort knowing that those are cohesive with each other, and you're not all over the place.
Yeah, I also think we have a little bit of we're lucky to have a little bit of wiggle room because comparing it to other lines, who
Why?
knows how, you don't really have that reference of exactly how tall. But
No.
again, they're always like 1/12 scale. So that's kind of the idea that they're, I enjoy watching people play with them as if they were 1/1 scale.
Yeah.
That's also kind of fun to
That's
see people, pretending
dude.
they're like
Yeah.
little goblins running around the house.
Yeah, and
But
that's the beauty. I mean, like I said, like they fit with my turtles, or they fit with just me. Like just have them on top of a camera, like you said, the mischief aspect of these guys is so much fun. Like the looting and just like taking stuff, and it's like, hey, where did my watch go? It's like one of the freaking Plunderlings just took my watch. It's just or just a sitting on a pile of rings and necklaces like from the house, and like a whole. I love that aspect of them, and it's I love the fact that you didn't bring in like you didn't have to rely on anything crude or violent or you know what I mean or sexual or anything weird like that, like which was what a lot of stuff sells these days. Instead, you just have a just this wonderful creation of mischief and fun and positivity. And like you said, I loved whenever I talked to you, not it was a little while ago, but when you said I didn't want to make any of them like angry or frowning because you wanted to only have a positive, mischievous outlook. And I think I still support that to this day. I think that's a bold choice because some people are like, well, I want like an angry one or a grumpy one. It's like, well, I'm sure you could get one and resculpt it yourself if that's how you want to do. But that bothers me.
We do have grumpy and angry ones, but the Plunderlong is kind of the sadder one, and the Plunderstrong is the angry one.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've delegated each Plunderfolk to try to encapsulate kind of a feeling, because it's already kind of hard to show personality in a toy, and that's kind of I don't know, it's kind of a structure we came up with that the Plunderlings tend to be happier, more mischievous, and the Plunderstrongs tend to be angrier.
Yeah.
And the Plunderlongs have a little more of a complex emotion to them, but there's kind of a they're kind of the middle child, so they're not too happy about that.
I think my favorite face actually comes from a Plunderlong, and it's the like I was like, oh, I noticed it more so. I think it was on the Drench, and I was like, I love that so much. I was like, oh, he did that was the first thing I noticed, is that you changed these faces. I was like, oh, they're not all just like the mischievous smiles, because these little guys are the funny thing to me. Is like all I could think of is a Plunderstrong picking one up by the head and him doing the little sweeping, and he can't get him, and it's like he's messing with the plunder, or he's like they're taking that stuff, and then you've got that nervous those nervous ones, but then you've got like the Plunderlongs, but then you've got Swash, and oh my gosh, the instrument and the backstory and if you want to go the Zorro aspect or the Princess Bride aspect or however you'd like to, that's the beauty, I think, is that they're not generic. They're just open to this. There is a little bit of that familiarity where you can sit there and be like, oh, this could be my whatever figure or whatever. And that, I'm telling you, that Swash feels like, I think it might be the gloves that really kind of drives him home, but the whole look of that figure is so cool. But it's the instrument, and hearing that he can't sing is I love that. I was like that's such a funny backstory, but I was like, all I saw was that stringed instrument, and I was like, oh god, I have to have it. Like that's
that grimacing face that you mentioned, the Plunderlong, is kind of what I imagine that people would use it for, is to kind of be the subject of harassment by the Plunderlings, So there was definitely a choice. It was a hard choice to make, whether we wanted to make them all smiling and happy.
Yeah.
But then after going over it a lot, it kind of it felt too limiting if every single Plunderfolk is like that. And so the idea is that we're going to try to capture a specific emotion and character to each race within the Plunderfolk, or each subspecies.
That film, what was it, Inside Out, where they had like all the different emotions inside of the person, and you had happy, joy, and anger and stuff like that. And I see these little guys, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's like, how am I? What? It seems like one of those silly like internet quizzes. It's like, which plunder, which plunder, how are you feeling today? I was like, I am very Plunderlong today. So just I don't know where I'm at. So just be cool.
I think, again, I think I've said this maybe once or twice, but I was most insecure about the reception of the Plunderlong, but there was something that really kind of resonated with me. That kind of that sort of that sadness in his eyes, I thought there was something really funny about it.
Yeah.
And something that kind of made me, it added a dimension to the Plunderverse that was kind of interesting.
Oh, absolutely. Because all I can see is like, I think these, it's funny, but I think there's something about, like, I know this is just a kind of a regular splayed hand, but there's something about a Plunderlong. I could just see the, like, that it's slumped over with the what the heck face and that sad. I'm like, the amount of emotions that you're going to be able to pull out of those figures is going to be ridiculous, man.
Well, it's also I think the posing has always been a really important aspect. So I think a lot of the personality is going to come from that
Yeah.
as well.
Oh, man.
Because also because they have such big hands and big feet and big ears, they're kind of naturally expressive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think it's a little bit easier to pull off certain poses, and well, definitely easier to keep the balance, but
Yeah.
just from their body language alone.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's one of the things. And bless you for going forward with the plunder strong and putting that extra in there. You know what I mean? That's so cool, man. And I think you can see from the chat here, everybody's excited. There's a lot of people that are already going for it. We've got somebody who's like, "Oh, I've been charged for Maru and Coral," so more
I'm going to
success.
follow up with that. That wasn't. I mean, they're coming out soon, but we were trying to not have it all happen at the same day. So
Eh,
sorry that happened. Yeah.
more
Honestly, this
Plunderlings.
Kickstarter was supposed to be launched. Like we were aiming for January, but everything just got pushed back, and so it's just kind of a unfortunate coincidence. Definitely not done on purpose.
Listen, man, the more plunder, the better plunder. And I'm pretty sure I speak for everybody of the plunder verse that we're all excited, and we're definitely going to continue to support you and everything. And man, I can't thank you enough for taking a little time out of your exhausting schedule. I know you've got to be like just floored right now. You're kind of making this gauntlet, and I hope we see more of this guy right here who's given the world a little bit of insight into the creative minds. I know there's more. You're not just the one guy, but sorry, man, you're the face now. So this is where you are.
Yeah, I need to get more comfortable. I think I definitely don't love being in front of a camera, but I think I'm going to start getting used to it. People have been so nice that anyways, thank you for giving me a safe space to to get over
Man.
it. So
Always,
I appreciate it.
always, man. Is there anything else that you want to tell the world? You know, we're in the final push right now.
No, I'm very happy with how far we've gotten. If anyone didn't know about it and wants to jump on the Kickstarter, please do. But I also want everyone to pace themselves and get what they can. And we'll make an effort to keep putting more out.
Man, that's awesome. And that's all you can do, and that's all we want to hear. So Ricky, once again, dude, thank you so much. And thank you for everybody in the chat. And thank you for everybody who's supporting. And thank you to everybody who's about to go support this right now so we can unlock even more. Let's push for that 300 or more. That would be fantastic. With that, all I got to say is we'll wrap up by saying, just continue, please, to take care of each other out there. And the impossible just takes a